Greetings, and welcome to this week's recap of some of the top stories. We're going to start off with Howard Stern. Everybody's heard that Howard Stern, SiriusXM, is not renewing his gazillion-dollar contract. I don't think anybody's playing any violins for him. He's made plenty of money. But they're done. They're not going to continue, so he's out at SiriusXM. And a lot of people are talking about it. Some are saying he's fired, and I don't think it really much matters after all these years of all the money he's made, and he's been very successful. And he used to be funny, but this is Glenn Beck's take on the real reason why he believes that SiriusXM said no more Howard. So we're going to listen to Glenn Beck.
Howard Stern no longer being wanted at XM. XM is like, yeah, he's not really worth his $100 billion contract. And so they're not going to renew. And I was thinking about Howard today because when I was 18 or 19 years old, 18, I was working at WPGC in Washington, D.C., which was a huge radio station. And it was right there in the nation's capital. And for years it had been number one. And then Howard Stern came along. And Howard Stern took everything and turned everything upside down. And when the Florida airline, like Sunshine Airlines or something, I can't remember what it was, but it plowed into the 14th Street Bridge. It was taking off from Reagan National Airport, not called Reagan back then, just National. And I think it couldn't get enough height or something, and it crashed right into the 14th Street Bridge. And while they were digging bodies out of the Potomac, he called the airline and tried to book a seat live on the air, to the 14th Street Bridge. Would like to buy a ticket, please? Yes, sure. Where are you going? The 14th Street Bridge. And the person just fell apart. And it was so horrible. But everybody was listening to him because he was, I think you were the one, Jason, that said he was like punk rock. Yeah. You didn't necessarily listen to punk rock because you liked punk rock. You listened because nobody else was saying anything like that. Nobody else was doing anything like that.
So I remember the plane crash. I remember that incident when it happened. I don't necessarily remember so much the Howard Stern live at the time. I heard of him. I had listened to him. I had heard clips. I didn't listen to him all the time, but I was very familiar with him. And as an 18-year-old, because me and Glenn are pretty much the same age. He said he was 18. I looked it up. It was Air Florida Flight 90. It happened in 1982. And I turned 18 in 1982 in October of that year. So Glenn's saying he was 18. So we're pretty much the same age. So I have a clear recollection of Glenn's account of the chronological order of events that because we're pretty much the same age. But he's right. Howard Stern, and if you look at his whole career, the key thing, and Glenn just alluded to it, is why the listenership was so high and why he ultimately got that huge contract with SiriusXM later on was people just tuned in. They listened longer. And I think they did studies where the people that liked him, that were fans of Howard Stern, listened longer because they never knew what he was going to say. Just like he alluded to some of the outrageous things he would do, the blackface, the whole shtick. He would sensationalize everything, and people stayed tuned longer because they wanted to hear what he was going to say next. Ironically, the people that didn't like Howard Stern, that found him repulsive, listened also for the same exact reason. Now, they may have been repulsed by what he was saying, but they too listened longer because they wanted to hear what he was going to say. So from a marketing standpoint, it was a win-win. And ultimately, that's what ratings are, is eyeballs, and can you keep them paying attention? So Glenn's account is spot on about the events that took place back then. But then he continues on.
Like that. And he became wildly popular, then went up to WNBC radio and totally changed that. Don Imus, who was actually a class act and very, very intelligent, hated Howard Stern, and Howard Stern hated him because, you know, at the time, well, they're just from a different generation. No. Howard did so much to destroy our culture. And it's funny that he embraces now people like Al Gore and the left and big government, because he was always anti-government, always. And the people that, you know, were the leaders against Howard Stern's show were not people like me. They were people like Al and Tipper Gore. And now he embraces all of those people and embraces this big government. The one thing that Howard Stern did do is he fought the government and won. Most times he won. And he was a trailblazer for freedom of speech, but he was also a trailblazer for just degrading of our society, the degrading of women and relationships and everything else.
And he's very right on that too, because I do remember the Al Tipper Gore reference. He's talking about, because Glenn Beck's been in radio forever, and the Al Tipper Gore reference, I think Tipper was spearheading. They were trying to put these advisory labels on music albums. I don't know if it was exclusive to rap, but rap really brought it in stronger than some of the. I mean, there's been a lot of obnoxious lyrics in some music. You can say hard rock, heavy metal, but rap really ratcheted up to another level where there was a lot of, he talked about degradation of society. There was a lot of degrading things, but anyway, Tipper was a big spearheading of the advisory labels, and there was a big battle of music saying, no, it's the freedom of speech, all that stuff. But he's so far spot on the analysis and the chronology of the history of Howard up to this point.
And he was I think he was a pox on our culture for a very long time. He was an innovator, to be sure. And then he seemed to, I don't know, right around 2000, between 2000, 2010 or so, he started to just concentrate on interviews, and he became one of the best interviewers of anybody on radio or television. And I know because he interviewed me one time, and I was 20 minutes into it, and my guard was way up, and I was 20 minutes into it, and I stopped, and I realized I was telling him stuff that I hadn't told anybody before. And I thought, what the hell am I doing? This guy is a magician. He's a hypnotist. He can just make you so comfortable, and that's what made him a great interviewer. He could make you feel so comfortable, and that you would just share everything. And so he got great interviews. And then after COVID, I think he went insane. I really do. I think COVID radicalized him into this big state monster. I mean, the 20-year-old Howard Stern would be disgusted with the 70-year-old Howard Stern. But that's the way a lot of these, I can't put him in the hippie category, but he is of that age or close to that age, to where the younger self would be disgusted by the big state government guy that he has become, to where, you can scoop up anybody and just tell them exactly, what they're going to inject into their body and everything else. And it's crazy. He went nuts. And once again, this is not Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I think, was a fan of his. Donald Trump was a regular on his show for a very long time. And Howard Stern loved him until he became president of the United States. And then, of course, because he was on his journey of just becoming this diehard Democrat, and not the kind of Democrat that was for him, if there were any. I shouldn't say Democrat. Liberal. He was always liberal and believed that you could say whatever you want, do whatever you want. I don't have a responsibility for society and everything else. And that's fine, whatever. I disagree with you, but fine. But he became this Democrat. And so as soon as Donald Trump became the candidate, he went nuts and never changed on that. And then COVID happened. and he went even crazier. And it just was announced, I think it was announced yesterday, that XM has just said, okay, enough is enough.
I couldn't agree more. I think he's spot on. I think he goes through the chronology of Howard Stern's career and his interpretation. I can't disagree with anything. I followed along. I remember the interviews. I think he's right about the interview. I remember watching some of the interviews, and he's right. And ironically, Glenn was saying his guard was way up. So he's being interviewed by Howard Stern with his guard way up, and he's still just revealing things that he otherwise normally wouldn't reveal. So that is true, and he's giving him credit for that. So I think that's the appeal of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is a great interviewer because he puts you at ease. He's just a regular guy with curiosity and just having a conversation. And I think people are drawn to that. There's a certain authenticity that people say, hey, I find that very appealing. So I think his analysis is spot on. And the whole COVID stuff, don't get me started on that. I'm in total agreement with Glenn. I think he did go crazy, but really half the country went crazy. There was a huge chasm that happened during COVID, and I call it the response. The government response was what I refer to as an iatrogenic response. It's a fancy word I learned from watching Dr. Phil. Basically, iatrogenesis is in simplest terms, the cure is worse than the disease. So if a doctor prescribes a procedure or a prescription for a certain ailment, and it ends up that procedure or prescription causes more damage than the underlying symptom that they were trying to remedy, that's the term that they use. They call that iatrogenesis. Well, I look at COVID, and that whole thing was an iatrogenic response, in my opinion. So in relates to Howard Stern, I think Glenn is spot on. That Howard just went crazy. He was one of those, put on your mask, you're a monster if you don't, and you want to kill grandma, the whole spiel. It was insanity. So let me know what you think. I think Glenn is spot on, and whether you're a fan or not a fan of Howard, I think his analysis is right on the money. Okay, speaking about the degradation of society, now we're going to go over to a story over the PBD crew. They're going to be reacting to a video that went viral, and not in a positive way. They're going to be reacting to some kids who get, well, I'll let him tell you and set it up what you're about to see.
So there's 3 kids. They're robbing, stealing from a Walgreens in Dallas. They get locked inside, okay? And instead of being scared, embarrassed, I'm going to show you the attitude of them screaming, clowning the robbers, and threatening to attack them, okay? And then you guys as a parent, you guys are parents. Rob, please tell me how you would feel, and I'm going to get into what I think the parents and all that stuff, but they just got caught, and they're locking them inside of Walgreens.
Go for it.
You got like 10 seconds to open up the door. I swear to God, I'm gonna break the door.
What'd he say? I'm going to break the door. 10 seconds.
I'm calling
him downstairs. That's him.
Bitch, I've been knew how to get out. Show 4 out of there. Can't do that. You can open the door. Open up the door. I'm not all I fucking know is y'all gotta open it. I'm not playing. You know how to count. You have time. Open the door. Open up this door before we break this bitch.
Look at that, dude.
I'm gonna break some up in this bitch. I'm God. You are.
Look, he wants to go hit her.
I will fight that for you, y'all. Do not play with me. Do not.
No kid is born this way.
No, hell no.
That's correct. These kids were
No
made.
kid is born this way.
Yep.
No, they're not born this way. They're carrying out bags. When I was maybe their age, not much, I tried shoplifting once. I got caught. These department stores used to, I guess they still do, but they used to intervene more physically. I think it was something stupid like pens pens, pencils, something stupid that fit in your pocket. And I thought, no, I'm so smart, I'm going to get away with it. And as I was walking through the store, the security guy, the theft protection or whatever they called him, he came up, big dude, right beside me and walked along with me and grabbed me by the belt loop with a death grip and walked me to the office. And it scared the bejesus out of me. Not for whatever trouble I was going to get in from them, because really it was something very stupid. It was a very nominal fee. It was pens or pencils. So whatever restitution I would have had made, it was doable. So that wasn't the concern. The concern was my father would murder me when I got home. So that's what's running through my head as he's walking me through this office and giving me whatever lecture he ended up giving me. So it was the fact that I was fearing for my life because I had to go home and face the executioner. So that was my real fear. So needless to say, that was the first and last time I ever dabbled in shoplifting. So seeing these kids walking out with bags and with the attitude like, you better open this door, I'm going to trash it. I just can't even imagine.
Look at that.
I will trash this all. I'm closed. All right,
Here's my question.
Is that the only clip?
No,
Rob?
there's go ahead, Rob. This is them afterwards with the sister. She's going online because she's like, people are talking crap about them. Let me post a video which doesn't help the case at all. Rob, play this one. This is the sister.
She make more money than you. She got her own house. She pay her own bills. She got more shit than you. You broke. You ain't getting no emotion. And that was not food inside the bag. That was snacks and toys.
Snacks
And
and
if it
toys.
was, yeah, that's what y'all like the fuck.
Matter of fact, everybody steal. Matter of fact,
Y'all
Everybody
got food.
steals.
Everybody that knows know y'all got food.
y'all grown people.
And by the way, she posts multiple videos of this. By the way, this drove me crazy because, okay, I'm just going to assume who was outside waiting for them to drive them away. It wasn't the sister, maybe the mom, if she's still in the picture.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I had to assume, like you guys nailed it. How the hell do you get to that? How do we get to that behavior? Okay, you're taught. Where's the father?
And you watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume there's no father in the picture. Okay, this is an exact result of tearing down the nuclear family that we talked about last week and pretending it doesn't matter. That type of attitude. And then this will boil over into that situation where that guy that we saw that got pulled over, Pat, they got pulled over, and that attitude, that resentment, that entitlement, close the door, close the window, smashing the window, not listening to the police. What do you think these kids are going to turn into?
I'm cooperating. No, you're not. You're just sitting there with your hands up in a dash.
And that's obviously the progression that the kids like. On the current track, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's a logical progression. They're referring to the gentleman that got pulled over, and he was very defiant, and they dragged him out, and of course there was crying of brutality and all this stuff. But the flippant attitude of like just screw authority. Not to say that there aren't bad cops and bad everybody. We're all human. So I don't care whatever field of endeavor, you'll find people that fall short because we all fall short. We're all imperfect, but some are more abusive than others. So that notwithstanding, there are bad actors, but in the general course of just regular work, police work, and like he's referring to in that video, they're giving lawful commands. It's not like a Rodney King situation. They're just like, hey, get out of the car, comply, talk to the judge. If you think we're doing anything out of line, you tell it to the judge and settle it there, not on the street. So yes, these kids with this attitude at such a young age, as they age, the stakes only get higher and it only gets worse. So they're spot on with what they're prognosticating.
With this attitude, what are these poor kids? And I feel bad for them. What are they going to turn into? What are they going to turn into? It's that culture that's happening right now that's out of freaking control. And if you say anything, you should see all the hate I got on Instagram because of the freaking guy that was pulled over and wasn't listening to the cops. Man, you don't know nothing. You racist. Wait till I see you. It's like, okay, whatever. What are those kids? What's the future?
And he's right. That's a common refrain you hear from some people that want to deflect from whatever the issue is and to say, oh, it's racist. it's racist. Okay, regardless of what the color. I mean, a lot of people want to throw that term around, and I find it very irresponsible. You should listen to Thomas Sowell. Read a Thomas Sowell book. He's brilliant. He's one of the smartest people you'll find. He talks about it's culture, not color. It's culture. So it would serve a lot of people well to listen to Thomas Sowell.
Going to turn into? They're already 80% of the way there.
I want to show you something. I found this video a couple weeks ago. This is in 1986. You're talking 40 years ago, okay? They're interviewing a bunch of single mothers, okay? And look how they're speaking. Go ahead, Rob.
Raise your hand if you're married. None of you are married. Raise your hand if you would like to be married to your baby's father. One. The rest of you who don't plan to get married, why don't you plan to get married? I'd like to know that.
You already have your child to think about, and then a whole family to care for. You know, it's a lot of responsibility, and then you don't want the commitments.
I wouldn't want no man holding me down because I think I can make it as a single parent.
But don't you think you might need help in raising that baby from a man?
Not really. I didn't have a father. My father wasn't in the home,
There you go.
It really male figures are not substantially important in the family.
Though you would not have heard such things said so freely because they were not embraced so widely. The strong family was still the backbone of Black America, and 3 out of 4 children had both parents at home. That is true no longer. Most Black children are now growing up without their fathers. The result is a world turned upside down as children copy what they see and repeat what they learn. LaDawn said she didn't have a father in her home and doesn't think her children need one. She's not unusual. Half the Black families today are headed only by a woman.
That's
Linda said
86.
she could make it on her own as a single parent.
She doesn't think a man is needed in a child's life.
She has never been married and is raising her daughter without a man's help. She's not unusual. Today, nearly 60% of all Black children are born out of wedlock.
Unbelievable. That's 86, and it's not gotten better. So now what do you do?
86. So think about that in more recent years when you hear terms like toxic masculinity. This is a byproduct of that, and it started before 86, and I think they're going to touch on really what it goes back to.
So now what do you do? So the same people they voted for came up with these policies that destroyed the incredibly conservative, strong, disciplined African-American families that wore suits and ties, the way they dressed. Hey, boy, stand up, carry yourself. I remember I met somebody when I was in the military, some of these, folks I would meet, the level of discipline. Now you hear some of the stories, because for every story like this you also hear stories about, who the CEO of Lowe's is. Go to the CEO of Lowe's. Lowe's CEO is a man named Marvin Ellison, okay? He's been with them now for 6 or 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. This is a Fortune 100 company ran by Marvin Ellison. Do you know who his brother is? Can you type in who Marvin Ellison's
I
brother is?
assume it's not Larry Ellison.
No, it's not Larry Ellison, but Marvin Ellison's brother, you would know who he is. Marvin Ellison's brother is somebody, not this one, they have a couple of them.
Oh, Keith Ellison?
We had him on the podcast, if you remember.
Keith Ellison?
Not Keith Ellison.
Oh.
We had, is it Vincent? Can you type in, Rob, if I'm not Vince Ellison? Yes. Do you guys remember when we had him on the podcast?
Oh, on
Election night.
Election night, yes.
Incredible.
That's his brother.
Get outta
Guys,
here.
what I'm trying to
Talk
tell
about
you.
good parenting.
And by the way, they were raised by incredible parents.
Yes, he's awesome.
Incredible parents.
Fact.
Right values. You see where one of them is at the top. Fortune 100 CEO of a company since 2018. So this is the stark difference between the two. But when you come up with bad policies, you're like, well, Planned Parenthood. So what we got? This is unfair. It'd be a freedom of choice. Oh, really? The whole purpose of Planned Parenthood was to eliminate African Americans. That's what the founder wanted. She wasn't there because she was so sentimental.
Again, spot on analysis. The founder, he's talking about Margaret Sanger, a racist, eugenicist, pretty much an evil person. You know, evil. Let's say Hillary Clinton before Hillary Clinton. Just couldn't resist. Anyway, yeah, Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood. She considered black people to be like weeds that needed to be plucked out of your garden to keep it beautiful. So yeah, he's right on the history of that, and they're going to go on to further explain
About the African American community, what percentage of abortions do you think happens from that? What percentage of abortions that Planned Parenthood does is African Americans? What is the number?
Over 40%.
Over 40%, guys.
Yep.
Over 40%
Population's never been over 60%.
Yes. Then what do you do?
Over 40%
add hip-hop,
of the customers.
add drugs, add taking entitlement value, add giving money for having kids out of wedlock, add all this stuff, and then what do? You destroy an entire community of people who are being raised by them. I'm not saying everybody. Look at that number right there. Non-Hispanic black women, 41% of the abortions.
Yeah, and they're only
Then
7% of the country.
They're not African Americans. You mean the
14.
woman?
African American women, 13% of the
7%,
country.
yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Meaning it's they're
I know.
out-kicking their coverage.
I understand. But 41.5% of all the abortions is by black women. Then it's white women. Then it's Hispanic women. Then it's all the other races. How did we get here? How did this happen? Yeah, and these videos that you see with kids talk like that. Like, wait, last night,
because there's two things that have absolutely destroyed the African American community. Now, they will read, I'm going to first go to something. They will read talking points. Oh, it was, companies pulled money out of Cleveland, pulled money out of Pittsburgh, out of downtown, and left no jobs. No, the Great Society under Lyndon Johnson and Planned Parenthood are the two greatest impacts on the African American community that was assimilating, getting through civil rights chapter of America, and moving forward, as Pat pointed out, dressed in suits, going to church. They were very respectful with everybody. People were respectful with them. And those two things, the Great Society under Lyndon Johnson, which was a lie below the surface, and Planned Parenthood have taken it here. Everything else that we're seeing downstream is now an artifact of that, but they're responsible to it. It may not be your fault, but it is your reality, is what every person has to face.
again. I can't disagree with anything. I think they're spot on with everything they're saying, especially at the end when he was talking about the Great Society. That's what ushered in all this nonsense. When you look at that, I think it was 1964, Lyndon Johnson, a racist, a real racist, unlike in more recent years when everything's racist, everybody's racist, everything is racist. If that's true, then nothing's racist. But back then, Lyndon Johnson was a racist. Margaret Sanger, head of Planned Parenthood, was a racist. Two evil people. They implement the Great Society. What a name. I love these names the Great Society. So that ushered in the beginning of, you talk about the degradation, the breaking up of the nuclear family. That can't be stressed enough. Those clips in 1986, think about it, 1986, 1964, the Great Society. One generation later, just one, you've got the women that they showed in 1986 saying, you don't need a man in a family. That's just one generation. We're a couple more down the road. So yeah, I think their analysis is spot on. I really appreciate the guys over the PBD podcast. I think they do a pretty good job. I think they got a pretty level-headed analysis of things, and they're pretty entertaining. And I think I've said before, PBD, I think he's one to watch in the future. I think his platform is going to be around for a long time. So I really appreciate their analysis. Okay, so now we're going to jump over into the world of politics, where Megyn Kelly and her panel are going to discuss President Trump's desire to, I guess, what you could say is do a redo on the 2020 census. And they're going to discuss what they think about it.
Trump sends out a post saying he wants to change, well, not change, but he wants to conduct a new census, which is only supposed to be done every 10 years, technically. We're only on the 5-year mark. It was done in 2020 last. And this is very interesting because there's a question about what, if anything, it could do to our electoral politics. Here's the Truth Social post. I've instructed our Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern day facts and figures, and importantly, using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 24. People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, you've got our CP's Ben Weingarten, your guy, writing, this could have significant political implications because the census count is used to apportion House seats, determine the number of votes each state gets in the Electoral College for selecting the president, and drive the flow of trillions of dollars in government funds. But there's also the question of whether you can exclude illegals for those purposes. Like you do not have to let illegals vote, but the Constitution seems to read that they are supposed to be included. You're supposed to just count all persons in the United States, which is going to be a legal battle in the same way it's a legal battle right now over Trump and birthright citizenship. So what do we make of this, Andrew? Do we think the census and redoing it at the midway point is going to have electoral consequences?
Well, I'm not sure he's talking about redoing it before the 2030. That would be a big change. The Constitution, you're right, the Constitution calls for a census every 10 years, and we do use that to apportion.
He says to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census. Immediately.
Yeah, well, maybe.
The way it reads, Megyn could read, and she is a lawyer, so that was good on her to clarify. Yeah, that's what he said.
Maybe that would be a big change, and then how you would use that, I don't know. That's a whole different constitutional question of whether you could speed up the census in order to change the numbers. It seems to me that would be a hard lift.
It's going to be a legal battle.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard enough lift because, as you point out, the Constitution, the language is kind of clear. It says you have to count everyone in the country, and it doesn't distinguish between the two. But the political consequences of this, and Ben Weingarten's piece is well worth reading on this, and Pew has done a study on this as well. California and Texas, I think would both lose seats. Wisconsin and a bunch of other states would gain seats. So it would change the electoral composition and could change control of the House. And we're seeing that right now with all this sort of redistribution argument that's going on, redistricting argument that's going on in Texas and other places now. Mm-hmm. So this is all part of that same argument. And I do think, though, Trump has a point, and the point is that if you don't count voters, and then you provide these seats based on that number, you're sort of gypping voters. You're sort of so there might be.
Why does my vote get diluted? Right? Because I live in a state with a ton of illegals who don't have the right to vote and whose interests are really not in my head or heart when I go into the ballot box.
Right. Well, actually, I think it's the opposite. I think you get more representation because they're counting people who don't vote. So it's anyway pretty complicated stuff. But I don't think it goes anywhere. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but it does seem to me that the courts have ruled on this before, and it seems to me that changing the census is pretty tough.
I'm trying to do the math that you just quickly did. Does my vote get diluted? If I live in a state like New York or California where there's a fair amount of illegals and I'm a U.S. citizen, is my vote diluted or does it count more? I can't do the math like that. I
think it counts more.
Tom, you went to Princeton. Would you like to resolve that? Explain it?
No, I wasn't a math major.
He wasn't a math major. So I think what the gentleman said was wrong. And I can see Megyn's wheels turning in her head and her eyes rolling around, trying to figure out the conundrum that she's trying to figure out. And I've got a clip that I want to show from the last administration, actually 5 years ago, that dovetails to explain why I think the gentleman is wrong and to help Megyn figure out her little conundrum in her brain. And it's from Yvette Clarke, a representative in New York, a Democrat, and I want to let you hear what she says.
You know, we're in a pandemic. We're trying to do the best we can under the circumstances. We're not trying to scare people, but we're trying to let them know that this is their power, particularly if you don't have status. This is one way that you can add value to the communities in which you live. And it's about power. It's a power move. That's why, again, Donald Trump essentially tried to, put up all of these obstacles and scare people away from filling out the census, because he knows it's about money. It's about power. And so, we've got to put on, our big C on our chest, get that courage going, be bold and audacious, fill out the census, because that lasts us for 10 years. And I think about, our families. I think about children. Today you're 8 years old. While the census is over for 2020 and we're in 2030, we'll have 10 years. That 18-year-old now has not had all of the resources they have needed in order to live a fulfilling life that we could have given them if they had only said they were here. And I keep telling people, listen, you damned if you do and you damned if you don't. You better be damned if you do, because when you don't, you're giving your power over to others. And this is one of the few ways that as a resident of the United States of America, you can exert power. So I tell people, just like the song says, money, power, respect.
Okay, so there you go. So I know some thinking, hey, well, why are you having just another disingenuous, delusional Democrat on there? Which I would say, yeah, that's probably all true. But she is saying something true here, and she's revealing something that is well understood and not always articulated out loud, like she just did. Only I don't think to what she was assuming everybody would believe, because you heard her say the 8-year-old that's turning 18, they couldn't have as a fulfilling life without all the resources that the government could have provided for that 8-year-old that's going to be 18-year-old. So, but what's true about what she says, it is about power. Now, that was in 2020, during the pandemic, COVID, the election, all the chaos of 2020. If your memory bank serves you, it was a pretty crazy year. That's what she said in 2020. It was an interview, I think it was a show, Ebro in the Morning, I think it was interviewing her. So that was 2020, Yvette Clarke. And then just 1 year later, you hear her say this.
The key to life. What role do you believe members of the Haitian American diaspora here can and should play in assisting the effort to stabilize and rebuild Haiti? I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of these migrants. And when I hear colleagues talk about, the doors of the inn being closed, no room in the inn, I'm saying, I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes. And those members could clearly fit here. But would you please respond? And I yield back after that, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you for your indulgence. I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes.
Okay, there's the quiet part out loud. I could use people just for redistricting purposes. Okay, so let's that's 2021. That's same person 1 year later after it's all about power. So when people say, well, why would the Biden administration deliberately just let millions and millions of illegal immigrants just pour across the border, and when it's just harmful, not just to the people traveling like coyotes and the women that are raped along the way, and the human toll and the tax that it takes on the the communities in the United States, the services, that they get overwhelmed. Why would somebody do that deliberately when all this harm comes from it? Well, she just told you. So, just like, and now let's flash back to the Constitutional Convention, 1787, and there's this argument about this thing called slavery. And you had the southern states that wanted to count every one of the slaves. And you had abolitionists up in the north who wanted to abolish slavery. So they kind of objected to that idea. So what was the argument that ultimately had to be resolved by this, and leave it to lawyers, the 3/5 compromise? The 3/5 compromise was a negotiated agreement between the North and the South, because without it, we weren't going to be a country. We won the American Revolution, which is a miracle in itself. But then we were under the Articles of Confederation when we were, just a startup, fledgling country. And that wasn't working out too well. We needed a little more powerful. We were very leery of getting away from King George. Centralized power was not our thing. So we resisted the notion of it at all. People were very, very hesitant to give any power. So, but they realized under the Articles of Confederation that it wasn't going to cut it. We needed a little more teeth. So this divide between the North and the South, where the Northern abolitionists didn't want anything to do with slavery, and the South said, hey, this is our economy. We're living off of this stuff. Don't rock the boat. So without that compromise, we probably weren't going to be a country, as distasteful as it may be. But essentially what they came up with is, okay, we're not going to say, you're going to get representation for every single slave you own, because they were smart people back then. They could realize, all right, well, that's going to be our representation in Congress. And all they got to do is run across the ocean, bring in more slaves, and they'll get greater and greater representation, and we'll never get rid of slavery. So they knew that was a no-brainer, that you couldn't have representation for every slave they had. But you needed the South to unite to make us the United States. So they had a couple lawyers come up and negotiate this ratio to say, okay, how about we do 3/5? This is where you get the argument of some people that want to say everything's racist. They'll say, oh, this country is so racist, they don't even think black people we're a whole person. They think we're 3/5 of a person. That's where this comes from, the 3/5 compromise. It's that black people today that want to push these racial narratives, they want to point to that and say, oh, they only think we're 3/5 of a person, this country. And that's not the case. They came up with that 3/5 ratio so they could satisfy the South to a point, and hopefully, again, to become a more perfect union, our country, which has the amendment process, later on down the road, which we fought a civil war over, would fix this blight that we're going to this stain that we're going to have in our country moving forward from 1787. So this is where it stems from. It's about power. The South wanted the power, just like North wanted to eliminate that power because they wanted to abolish slavery. They found it offensive. But they were conflicted because we weren't going to be a country without working with the very South that wanted to continue slavery in perpetuity. So that's where this all ties together. And hopefully this helps Megyn with her little conundrum. Like, does it help? Does it hurt? Trump's effort is actually one that would help because he wants to get all the illegal immigrants out. I know some people don't like to say anybody can be illegal, but it's like somebody that breaks into your house. If they break into your house, are they a criminal or are they a dinner guest? You wouldn't call them a dinner guest if they climb through your window at 3 o'clock in the morning. But if you invite them over for dinner, they're a dinner guest. So it's important how we describe things and not to conflate things that aren't based in reality. So hopefully, Megyn, that clears up whether or not you think you get more or less representation based on what you just heard. Speaking of negotiations, now we're going to go over to our Mr. Art of the Deal, President Trump, who evidently has just negotiated another big, beautiful peace agreement. He's racking these up like works of art, evidently. So let's see what he said.
It's a long time, 35 years. They fought, and now they're friends, and they're going to be friends for a long time. But it's a big, beautiful honor to welcome everyone to the White House for this very historic peace summit between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It's really a great thrill for me. I love seeing good people get together, and that's what you have here, two great leaders. I want to congratulate these two visionary people, Prime Minister Pashinyan and President Aliyev, for coming to Washington to sign this momentous joint declaration. It's a tremendously important document, and it's been a long time in coming. They were explaining before that so many times they thought they could get there. It never happened. It just never happened. I also want to thank Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and their teams at the State Department. And I see that we have Chris Wright outside and Senator Steve Daines sitting right here. Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. And Steve, thank you very much. And we have some other wonderful dignitaries, including the dignitaries from your country. But they provided tremendous diplomatic assistance. And Marco, congratulations. It's a big thing. Keep going. You've got many jobs. And then, of course, you would say Steve was quite influential. I call him Henry Kissinger, who doesn't leak.
So what would a Trump press conference be without his laugh line? So there we go. Another peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, two countries that, unfortunately, I probably wouldn't be able to point to on a map. So, yeah, another one. And he's just racking these things up. It used to be where a president, if he brokered, negotiated just one peace deal, that'd be a big deal. That'd be like a legacy thing. Trump's racking these up like he's collecting cards. He's got the India and Pakistan, the Congo, Rwanda, Thailand, Cambodia, this most recent one. I can't even keep track. So it's pretty amazing what he's doing. And he's truly America first. And that's the lens through which he's negotiating everything. And you think about any negotiation, if you think most people think about, maybe are not familiar with all kind of contracts, but I think one most people could relate to is your rental agreement. Your rental agreement, if you have a landlord and a tenant, the contract is usually drawn up by the landlord, the owner, the property manager, the person that controls the property. They draw up a contract looking for a tenant to occupy the building, whatever the residence is. And typically, they will draw the contract up favorable to them. Anybody who has the ability to draft a negotiation is going to pretty much lean towards benefiting them, if not slightly, if not even more, but at least slightly in their favor. And that's what he's doing. It's America first, but he's looking to bring peace throughout the world, which is really a benefit to our country. So good for him. And let's hope his streak continues. I know he's got some big ones. This evidently has been a decades-long, 35 years. That's a long time. Obviously, it hasn't been making headlines for 35 years. We've got bigger ones, Russia, Ukraine, Gaza. So obviously people are going to point to those and go, oh, he didn't figure those out yet. Yeah. But he's got his hands full, and he's accomplishing quite a bit. Now, back at home, there's a big story stateside that our U.S. Attorney General has impaneled a grand jury to look into the Obama officials' Russia investigation and to see what they can uncover. Let's see what that's about.
A source telling CNN that Attorney General Pam Bondi has directed federal prosecutors to launch a grand jury investigation into accusations that Obama officials manufactured intelligence about Russia's 2016 election interference. The grand jury could issue subpoenas or even pursue a potential indictment as part of a criminal investigation into allegations that Democratic officials tried to smear Donald Trump during his 2016 campaign by falsely alleging his campaign was colluding with the Russian government. Now, this follows a recent move from Trump's Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. She declassified documents that she alleged undermine the Obama administration's conclusion that Russia tried to help Trump defeat Hillary Clinton. Let's bring in CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig.
I know. CNN is actually covering a story that Trump supporters are actually interested in. I know. But hold on. Don't get too comfortable. We're going to bring in one of their legal analysts, or as Mark Levin would refer to them as legal analyst. Let's hear what he has to say.
Ellie, what do prosecutors need to start or set up here? What's the process?
Yeah, Phil, so look, this is a big step forward because now we've moved from beyond the stage of reports and referrals and political statements into what appears to be an actual criminal investigation by the Justice Department. Now, traditionally, and I can't necessarily vouch or speak for this particular Justice Department because they've defied a lot of norms.
It didn't take long. They've defied a lot of norms. Oh, I don't know, like the norms like the last administration, raiding a former president's home, indicting a former president, trying to put that same former president in jail forever. All those norms. This administration is just breaking all those norms. So it didn't take long.
But traditionally, the burden to open a grand jury investigation is fairly low. It's not nothing. As a prosecutor, you have to have some basis to believe that a federal crime may have been committed. But Phil, now that there is a grand jury convened, that gives DOJ prosecutors enormous investigative powers. You already mentioned the two major things that grand juries can do. Number one is investigate. They can issue subpoenas. These are criminal subpoenas. They're essentially mandatory. You can challenge them, but they're typically upheld by courts. You can subpoena witnesses who will have to come in and give testimony in the grand jury. And then the second thing grand jurors can do, and we're down the line here, is ultimately vote to indict. That's how federal prosecutors obtain indictments. The burden is simply that you have to show probable cause that a crime was committed. It's a much lower burden than in order to show someone's guilt. So this is a major step forward in this investigation, potentially quite a precipitous one as well.
What do you think the likelihood of an indictment of somebody that maybe is well known to the American public would be in a situation like this?
Well known. What do you mean by like someone like, well, I don't know, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Clinton, McCabe, Strzok, Page? No one comes to mind.
Gosh, I have read Tulsi Gabbard's summaries and reports really carefully. I've tried to make sense of this, and I am not comprehending where the criminal theory comes in at all, frankly. Tulsi Gabbard's theory, which this started with a referral from Tulsi Gabbard over to DOJ, is essentially that Barack Obama or some of his officials were involved in falsifying intelligence around the 2016 election. But when you look at what the actual facts are, that simply does not appear to be true. The intelligence estimate at the time was that Russia was attempting to interfere in the 2016 election in Trump's benefit, and that they did that through persuasion, through taking out Facebook ads and that kind of thing. But the intelligence also showed there was no criminal conspiracy between Donald Trump and the Russians, and that there was no actual hacking to switch over votes in the systems. That intelligence has since been confirmed by the Senate Intelligence Committee, Republican-led, by DOJ itself through their Inspector General. So I'm not quite sure where I see, A, a discrepancy there. Never mind, B, Phil, a federal crime. I mean, we've heard terms like seditious conspiracy and treason. I'm not seeing anything close to that. And finally, Phil, I do have to note, all of this conduct would date back to 2016. Here we are 9 years later. The statute of limitations on most federal crimes is going to be 5 years. So I'm skeptical, but look, this is going to happen largely behind closed doors, and we'll see where it goes.
We'll see where it goes. He's just confused. He just doesn't see it. Language like, seditious, conspiracy, treason. Oh, I don't know. I remember January 6th, this so-called insurrection. They locked up people for years without a speedy trial or representation or anything because they were strolling through the Capitol, taking selfies, sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk. Oh yeah, I just don't understand it. And he's just bewildered. He just doesn't understand. Mark Levin was right. He is an analyst. Okay, let's end the recap on a positive, happy note. We're going to watch a video that went very viral on Instagram, like over 300 million views, of the high-fiving principle. So now there is music to this, but I'm going to mute the music. I'm just going to play the video, and I think that'll be enough for you to get the gist of the feel-good nature of it. High five. Oh, give me a hug. Nice. Gotcha. He's a little prankster. High five. Oh, down on the bottom, on the backside. Casual. High five. Keep it moving. Yeah, let's have a little fun. Body bump. Hey. Jumping high five. This little guy. He wants to jump. He wants to. You can see he's done this before. He's like, I want the body bump. I want the body bump. So he's like, okay, I'll give it to you. Got it. Now, I love this because this is why leadership is so important. After he does the body bump with the principal, watch what he does when he goes to his classmate. Same thing. I love that. Positive leadership ends up with a positive influence on especially kids. The principal is the highest authority in the school. So when you have the authority figure having a positive impact on the students, that has exponential returns on that child's life. So good for you. I looked him up. His name is Zach Bowermaster. If you want to follow him, see if he has any other high-fiving videos on his Instagram. I think he goes by Z Bowermaster on Instagram. And he's the principal of the school that evidently the kids love him. And that's awesome. So good for you, sir. Keep up the good work. You're definitely doing God's work. So that's it for this week's recap. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoy seeing weekly recaps. And if so, I'll see you next week.